This is a one-speaker meeting. Please welcome our speaker tonight, Mitchell.
I am Mitchell, and I have alcoholism, bad, real bad, and before I go any farther, without any sincerity whatsoever, I'd like to thank you for asking me to speak. If there's one thing I really hate doing, it's this. You know, I love one alcoholic talking to another alcoholic. I think that's the greatest thing in the world. I think this is fucking torture. I copped a really bad resentment on the way in. There was no parking. I'm parked about 4 blocks away, and I was thinking the speaker should have a parking spot reserved for him. And that resentment will stay with me for a while. I'll work on it. I could. Neil, let me know what the score is.
The Mets won.
Mets won. Okay, Mets won. Thank you. Okay. You know, my sobriety date is February the 7th, 1984. My sponsor's name is... well, I've had so many, you know. It's Luis R., and my phone number is 310-704-0866, and that's all the pertinent information you need to know about me, other than the story I'm going to tell you. And you don't even need to hear it, because the guys that got up and took cakes said it all. They really did. I heard everything, you know. Shit, you don't need me. We could take a 10-minute break right now, and that would be a good thing. The way my alcoholism works is that I constantly have chatter in my head. I wake up in the morning and it's there. I work on it, you know, all day long, but it's constantly there, and that's why I work on it all day long. And when I go to bed at night, it's still there, and I have to, you know that it's going to be there when I wake up in the morning. And I've heard about committees. I got subcommittees. I got little investigative committees, and I got this thing where I feel like I got all the classic things of alcoholism. You know, low self-esteem coupled with a big ego, and childishness coupled with grandiosity, and it shows up in everything I do and every place I go. And I think like I am the most important piece of shit on the planet. You know? and you know, that's how it is. I could be the classic example. I'm walking with my wife, and we're going into Nordstrom's, and there's a girl spraying perfume on everybody, and I'm thinking, I don't want to get sprayed with any fucking perfume. And I walk past, and she doesn't spray me, and I think, what? I'm not, you don't see me? You know, what? You know, and that's how my alcoholism works. And it's somehow, I think that it's like all based on fear, because that's my first memory is fear. I was thinking about, I've tried to go back as far as I can, as far back as I can get, is someplace around 1945, 1946. I was a little kid, and my dad was not around. He was in the war, and we lived in this place in Boyle Heights, and my thing was I would hide almost all day in a closet because there was a dog someplace that barked, and somehow I knew that that dog was somehow going to do what a barking dog does. I don't know, you know, but it was just fear. It was constant fear. And when I got to be 5 and I went to kindergarten, and it was like everybody in that kindergarten thing, like they knew what was going on, and I was afraid. I was just afraid. They all had something going on that I didn't know about, and it was constant fear, you know. In kindergarten, we had to go out, and they took us to the auditorium to dance. The little boys and little girls, what a stupid thing to do for a guy like me. I couldn't stand to be there. I had to sneak out, and I remember crawling under the seats and getting to the back door and lifting the panic hardware and opening that door. And at 5 years old, I was on the street by myself, and I felt, oh, this is perfect, you know, because I need to be isolated. I can't be around people because I don't know how to deal with people, because I'm less than, you know, or I'm better than, or whatever. But I'm not just, I can't be the way I am in AA, because when I get to AA, yeah, I look around and I see a bunch of people like me, you know, as uncomfortable as I was, and thank God, you know, there's this universal curve of random distribution, and if you pick up enough steel balls and drop them enough times and pick them up and drop them enough times, they start to form this curve, and this curve is exactly the same over time. And it's like there's a few over here and a few over here and a big mound over here. And, 3% of the population is alcoholics. And, so some of those steel balls are over here. And I'm one of those steel balls, I guess. I went through school in a terrible way. It was like the most uncomfortable thing I could think of. When I finally got to high school, I was old enough to not go to school, and so we never moved, but I went to L.A., Hamilton, Dorsey, and Fairfax, and we never moved. I was just a habitual truant, and not because I was a bad guy or a tough guy or anything else like that. I just couldn't stand to be around everybody else until I found beer. Beer, what a wonderful thing that was. Enough beer, and I could be just like I imagined everybody else to be. It was fantastic. I don't know about everybody in this room, but I was the kind of alcoholic that liked alcohol. I treated my alcoholism with stuff other than that, but in the beginning there was no stuff other than that. I'm old enough to, there was nothing, there was beer, there was booze, there was alcohol, but that was it, Pot didn't come along until, it was there if you were a musician or if you were, something like that. But, for a little white Jew boy from West L.A., that didn't exist. There was no pot. They told us about it in school, and it was called reefer. Still, some people called it reefer, so it wasn't on the table. Beer was there. Beer was on the table, and beer made me, it was great because I could talk to chicks, with beer. I was a smooth operator with beer. And I finally got out of school, and I went in the service, and in the service I could have as much beer as I wanted, and that was terrific. I wasn't, a classy drinker. I wasn't a mixed drink drinker. I wasn't a bar drinker. I was a beer drinker. Wine was good, too. But then I discovered pot. When I got out of the service, I hooked up with a guy that I knew from in the service, and we started going down to Mexico and bringing stuff back from Mexico. We were bringing pot back from Mexico. And pot was even better than beer, really, when I got into it. Pot, I wasn't just a smooth operator. I was like, there's no word for what I was. There was, I was beyond language. It was just really terrific. And so Rick and I started going down there and bringing stuff back, and Rick had a pilot's license, and where that eventually led to was like we'd go down there, we'd load up a plane, I'd drive back, I'd find a field, I'd call him, tell him where I was, I'd run toilet paper out and make a landing strip and stand there with flashlights. Rick would bring a plane in, and we were successful smugglers is what we were. And that was a terrific thing, and we thought, where can we go with this? Eventually Rick died, so I can mention his name. Where can we go with this? And so we started going overseas, and we started going to the east, and we were going to Lebanon, we were going to Turkey, and we were going to Morocco, Algeria, places where we could find hash. And some of those places we couldn't find it, but we went there anyway because it was cool. And we got to where we were running cars, and we would run 3 cars a year, and then we were running 6 cars a year, and we had guys with us. And 1969, October 6, 1969, the car I was in stalled as we were coming through customs, coming up from Ceuta into Algeciras in Spain, and I had 75 pounds of hash in my car, and they found it, and I told them it was for my personal use. And the story was not believed by the authorities, and I was sentenced to 11 years in a Spanish prison. And it was an interesting period of time. It was very interesting. A couple things happened. One, in Spanish prisons, because Spain is a very Catholic country, you get wine with every meal. So some people did not drink wine, and so there was like lots of wine to be had, and everybody that worked at break time, you could have my favorite beverage, beer, and so you could have beer and you could have wine, and you could do your time. And so that's what I did. I did my time on beer and wine, There's a song there. Someplace between 1969 and 1973, when I got out, 2 popes passed away. And every time a pope died, at least in Spain, I don't know about elsewhere, but every time a pope died, because Spain was a very Catholic country, there was a partial amnesty that was granted. So of the 7 years and 4 years together combined, that 11-year sentence, I did 4 years altogether. And I was hoping that other pope was going to die. I really was. I got nothing against the pope, but, I was just hoping. That was all. He was an old guy. He could have died, and I could have got out sooner, but I didn't. But it was a fantastic experience for me, and I learned a language that I use today, constantly, and it helped me along. But my flat learning curve did shit for me because I was out, I'm going to say I was out a week before I was arrested again. And eventually, my arrest thing over there, over here, they didn't even know about the fact that I'd been in prison in Spain. Nobody knew about that. But over here, by the time my run was over, by the time I got to AA, till the time I stopped doing what I was doing, I had 21 felony arrests, just in California. There were some of them were up north and some of them were here. Not a lot of convictions, but 21 felony arrests. And that was my introduction to Alcoholics Anonymous was a result of one of those. I got shuffled into a diversion program, and one of the things that happened in that diversion program is we went someplace in Santa Monica, I think it was Santa Monica High Auditorium, to listen to somebody who came in from AA to speak. And I was thinking, that's pretty interesting. She's got a problem, and she's willing to stand up there and share about it. I'm glad I don't have that problem. But that was my introduction to Alcoholics Anonymous. It wasn't like I started going to meetings after that. I continued, and then this other substance, I don't know how many of you guys heard about this stuff. Cocaine, you ever heard about cocaine? This stuff was around on the streets, back then. And so that was a natural thing for me to get involved in. And so I was doing that. I was dealing cocaine, and and eventually the cocaine was bringing me to my knees, and I had to do something about that, and I knew exactly what to do. So I moved to Hawaii and became a grower of pot in Hawaii just to get away from the cocaine. And that was horrible, but there was always beer, and beer was good. And eventually, a good friend of mine who's dead, Bobby, and you mentioned him the other day. I called him to get some heroin from him, and he said, I don't do that anymore. And I said, what are you talking about? And he says, well, I've been going to AA. Now, that was a weird thing for me, because AA, I'd heard this woman, I knew that Alcoholics Anonymous dealt with alcohol, and here this guy was a heroin addict. I never knew him to drink, and he told me that he was going to AA and he wasn't using anymore. And I thought it was interesting. I didn't think it was anything for me, but I thought it was interesting. And then almost simultaneously, another good friend of mine that I ran with for some time, I called him, and he said he was going to AA, and he called it sober. He was sober, and I never knew him to be a big drinker either, but he was, what he called sober. And then I've since learned that sober is like a frame of mind. It means to be steady, even, like that. It has nothing really to do necessarily with alcohol, but, here's these two guys. And I still didn't think too much of it, but then I had a daughter that was in a lockdown program because I was concerned about her killing herself, and besides that, I don't think I was a fit parent, so it was probably the best thing for her and for me. And oh yeah, did I mention that I went through a couple of marriages? I had a bumper sticker that said, "Honk, have you been married to Mitchell?" I abandoned a bunch of kids. I was really a terrible person. I have to tell you, I was not a decent kind of guy. But eventually, with these two guys, friends of mine that got sober, I asked Bobby to take me to a meeting. And in January of '84, he took me to a meeting. I didn't get sober right away, but I went to that meeting, and I thought it was interesting, and I liked the fact that people got up and spoke about how they felt, and how they felt sounded a lot like how I felt, and I was still didn't feel a part of it. I was still uncomfortable, and I was still carrying a gun, which is not unusual from other people I've heard, from up here on the podium, but I kept going back. Didn't get sober, but I kept going back, and I kept going back, and I kept going back. And sometime around February the 7th, I stopped. It was an accident. I guess I was going to meetings once a week, and what happened is that I missed a day. I was fucked up, and I didn't know what day it was, and I went to the same place, and there was another meeting there, and I realized that it wasn't Wednesday night, or it wasn't Thursday night, but it was Wednesday night, and there were 2 meetings in a row, and there was more than just 1 meeting a week, and that was it for me. That's where I got sober, when I went to 2 meetings in a row. That was it. And what happened is that I got involved in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I think I fit it in every respect. I loved alcohol, and I used it to make me feel like a human being, because I didn't feel human without it. And I loved everything else that I treated it with, to shut the little voices off, or if at least I couldn't shut them off, make them talk in some language that I couldn't understand. I could get them going real fast. And I got here, and I remember shortly after that I was driving around. I was sober maybe 3 days, and I was thinking, well, where's mine? Everybody's got theirs. Where's mine? And I didn't know exactly where the mine or what the mine was, but I just wanted mine. And my little logical voice, the one that sometimes talks to me, says, well, if you want yours, you're going to have to go out and get it. And so I didn't know exactly what that meant either, but about 4 days later, a woman that had set an appointment with me to come and sell me a telephone system, because I had a little business going on downtown, called and said she was on her way to keep the appointment, but she was lost. And I said, well, don't worry about it. Tell me where you are. And she was at the corner of Gage and Broadway, and she couldn't find my place. I said, just wait there. I'll come and get you. And so I got in my car, and I went over there, and as I drove up, I looked at the woman in the car, and she was beautiful, and I thought, you have to go get yours? I just went and got her. She's mine, And it turned out that she was a sober woman. I had no idea. I didn't know it right then. I didn't know it. We didn't talk about that. I didn't really listen to too much she had to say. I was just looking at her, and but I had gotten mine. She didn't know that was part of the deal, and so, she gave me her pitch for the phone system, and okay, and I said, well, you want to go out? And she said, well, no, I don't mix business with pleasure. And I said, well, I don't have to buy the phone system, we can just go out. And she said, no. So I bought the phone system, and I asked her if it was okay if I called her, and she said, yeah, I could call her. So I called her every day for a year. I stalked her. Today she would have, today it would be like an injunction or an order not to. But anyway, I did, and she told me at the end of the year, and then during our conversations, I found out that she was a sober woman. I asked, can I go to meetings where you go to? She said, no, please don't. Please don't. And she didn't like me. She really didn't like me. I was a creepy guy. I don't blame her but she didn't like me at all. But at the end of the year, she said that I was really the only thing in her life that was really constant, because that call. So we're married 23 years now. To each other. And it's a fantastic marriage, and it's part of how I stay sober. What we do from up here is we share our experience, our strength, and our hope. What we sometimes do is we share our opinions, and I have opinions, but that's not what we're supposed to share. So anyway, that's how I found my way to AA, and it wasn't really because of her that I stayed around, although maybe it was. I don't know. But whatever it was, we have a tremendous marriage, and I'm a really happy guy. But in order to keep that going, I have a couple of things that I have to do. I have to go to meetings all the time. I go to at least 5-6 meetings a week. I can't stop. It's the only place where I feel halfway comfortable, is around you guys. It's the only place where I feel right. I sponsor guys, and it makes me do stuff that I don't want to do. You know, it makes me read the big book. It makes me remember what inventory is all about. It makes me remember what all the steps are. I don't know that you have to do them over and over and over again, but when you help somebody else do them over and over and over again, and you keep on doing that, it's a tremendous thing, at least for me. That's how it works for me. So that's what happened, and that's what it was like. And what happened, let's investigate that further. Early on in my sobriety, before I really got involved, when I was still calling Michelle every morning and stuff like that, I was driving down Sepulveda. Well, first, I would drive to work, and I told you I had this little place downtown where I had this little business. I would drive to work, and I had been doing this for years, and all of a sudden I noticed that there was a building where it was a lamp store, and there was a guy here, and he painted on the side of his lamp store, he said, "For all you have given me, for all you have taken away from me, I am incredibly grateful. Gratitude is a great attitude." And it wasn't until I got in the program that I realized that this guy was an AA. And I stopped in, I talked to him. You know, it was pretty fantastic. He'd been sober for probably 20 years then. I was brand new. But that was a tremendous thing. But later on, I was driving down Sepulveda, and I was going through the tunnel. And this was shortly after the Where's Mine thing. And as I was going in the tunnel, I happened to glance over to the side and scratched, not scratched, but kind of mopped into the grime with a wet towel. I couldn't really tell what it was, or a sponge, was "Work the steps or die." And I thought, oh, this is a very interesting, you know, sort of thing to read. And I told my wife about it, and she thought it was bullshit. She thought I was making it up. And I told other people about it, and they thought it was bullshit. Until about maybe 2 years ago, we were at a meeting together, and a guy talked about how his sponsor made him go down in the tunnel and scratch on a thing, work the steps or die. And then, maybe a month after that, his sponsor spoke and talked about how he told the guy to go down there and do that. So I was exonerated. She knew I was telling the truth. But I still, you know, get the message all around. You know, the message is everywhere you look. I carry little things with me, and sometimes when I'm asked to speak, because I really don't know what to say, I have like show and tell shit. So I brought some. So this one, I was playing golf with some sober friends of mine, which I do a lot, and this was a sprinkler head that broke off and came up, and it was laying on the ground. I picked it up and I looked at it, and it says, "Do not drink." I thought, that's an amazing message for a guy like me. And the message is everywhere. And then when I go to I don't know what all you guys are laughing at, you know. But that's how it is for me. You know, that's the way my life is. You know, I wake up every morning, you know, with the voices in my head. But at least when I look over, I'm next to a sober woman, and it's great. And we travel together. And whenever we travel, we go to meetings wherever we go. We have a superb life. The relationship with my kids, the ones that I abandoned, has healed. You know, my son's in the program 16 years. He's a sober companion. I call him Sobi-Wan Kenobi. He goes around. He travels the world, you know, as a sober guy. My daughter is not. She works in a marijuana clinic, one of these medical clinics. She's taken right after her dad. You know, it warms the cockles of my heart. You know, I get these. She's also a professional wrestler, so I get these mixed feelings. You know, because I always have mixed feelings, like the girl with the perfume with the mixed feelings. You know, I see. Sometimes I go to watch her wrestle, and it's like, that's my daughter, and simultaneously with that goes, that's my daughter. And but it's fantastic, you know. It truly is. And I've made amends to the wives I left. I used to say that my first wife died in my arms, and everyone would go, oh, and I'd say, yeah, because I was holding her underwater. But it's not. But it's not true. It's not true. But I made amends to everybody that was on my my amends list. Everybody that I resented, because you know, on that you know, 4-step, you put down, I resent so and so because of what they did here, and it affects my whatever it is. And in that last column, the toughest column at all, my part, you know, my part. Oh, gee. And you know, with the ex-wives, I couldn't see it for a long time. I think I was sober 10, 12 years before I even thought about making amends to them, you know, and realizing what a shitty husband I was, what a horrible husband I was. You know, why wouldn't they act the way they did? So anyway, I did it all. I did all the steps. What am I supposed to talk to? How long does this go on for?
How much you got left?
Well, I got years left. I could go on for a long time. You know, bring it. Bring it. All right. Okay. So where was I? Yeah. Ex-wives, yeah. And there was a bunch of them. So, you know, it was, had to do those amends, you know, had to pay back all the money from drug dealing friends of mine that I'd ripped off, you know. And then, you know, I was a typical drug dealing rip-off friend, you know, the one that would come and take the shit and then come back, you know, an hour later and help you look for it, you know, because, you know, somebody took it? Let's find it, you know. We're going to get to the bottom of this. And so, you know, and I will say, you know, because I have to kind of close, because he said knock it off by 10 too. My life has completely changed. I know that after every 7 years or something like that, every cell in your body has been renewed, and you're not the same person you were 7 years ago, but you can really act the same way for a long, long time. I don't act the same way anymore. I'm a completely changed individual, and it's fantastic. I never thought I would be. I never hoped I would be. It's not what I was looking for when I got here. I just want to stop getting arrested. I really did. You know, it was got to be a joke, and I couldn't do anything about it. And I didn't want to have the constant stuff going on. So by doing what's required here, by sharing one guy to another guy, by doing fellowship, because when in the beginning of every meeting, I always hear the same thing, you know, Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope. And all the rest is just kind of, you know, I don't know about it, but that's it, fellowship, and that's what I do, you know. Everybody I do business with almost, you know, unless it's like a department store or big level, everybody is in the program. My plumber's in the program, my electrician's in the program, my accountant who just died the other day, it's going to be a big problem for me, I know that. He just, you know, he was in the program, my wife's in the program, my son's in the program, the guys I play golf with are in the program, the guys I bowl with are in the program, all my friends are in the program, and that's how it's got to be for me, because that's the only place I feel comfortable. If I left anything out, too bad.